It's a playoff time. We're going full court press.
Real Madrid are in trouble. Fener have got their brooms out, and Oli and Efes are, as expected, putting together kind of a crazy one. It's all ahead of us right here, right now, on Sweet 16. Tune in.
Hello and welcome to Sweet 16, an open look on Euroleague basketball. Yes, this is the second edition of us going full court press, as it is playoff time, but now we got to start off by saying hi to both Emmett and Aris. Hi guys, how you doing?
Hello there from Dublin, Ireland, home of ball in Europe, where, well, we've just had 4 straight nights of best described as crazy. And yeah, hopefully we're looking forward to a few more nights of, well, crazy.
And hello from Athens, where history was made this week with 3 Turkish break happening on Greek soil, and this what the Euroleague playoffs are all about.
Well, it is the 23rd episode of Sweet 16, and yes, we've come to the conclusion that there's, with the special edition, without, it is 23 episodes. So with that being said, honoring the great MJ, the iconic number 23, we are doing something that's close to the Jordan rules from the 90s. We are going with the Bogdan rules. Emmett.
Yeah, obviously Bogdan is the story of the week, really, in many respects, and we're going to get through him. Obviously, it's pretty straightforward this time of year with Sweet 16, because we are going full court press. There's 4 series, there's 8 teams, there have been 8 games this week, and we're just going to break down each of those series right here, right now. It's what we do. It's Sweet 16, we're going full court press. 4 minutes is just sometimes too much time to talk about what's happening. It's time to go full court press. The series that I suppose surprised the most people this week, and that was because Fenerbahce won both games on the road. There was a few folk with a sneaky suspicion that they could pull off one, this corner included. Pulling off 2, nope, didn't see that happening at all, to be honest. And in game 1, for large chunks of it, we all thought we were stupid to question Panathinaikos on home court, because after one Chris Singleton block, they went off on a 27-7 run, and it looked like, oh, here we go again. Panathinaikos and the Oaxaca at home in the playoffs. They cannot be defeated here. And then, Bogdan Bogdanovic kind of happened. He had sort of happened before that run as well, when Fener got their good start. And then he just took over again. And Fener, very businesslike in scaling back a 16-point deficit. I think that was what really jumped out to me was, it wasn't rushed, it wasn't panic. They just, this is the job we got to do. We are going to do it, and you can't do anything about it. Jump to game 2, different game, far more competitive, far more back and forth throughout. Not as much of a game where like Fener picked their moment to throttle Panathinaikos, because in many respects, Mike James doing what Mike James does, which is put a lot of points up and eventually fade because he can only do so much. Kept this in the battle, but once again, the unstoppable force of Bogdan Bogdanovic, when he wants to beat you, it would seem, was enough. And so, yeah, Fener 2-0. Like, obviously, we're going to be making our calls here. Like, I don't think anyone's really questioning that it's broom time. It's very hard to see anything other than Fener taking that win in Game 3 in Istanbul in front of their home fans. Zoc, incidentally, for all we talk about the way Obradovic has never lost a series in the playoffs, he has never lost a playoff game while coaching Fenerbahce. He is 3-0, 3-0, 2-0 in his 3 series so far. Hard to say he's not going to go 3-0 again. I suppose, Aris, this was one where people thought that the Oaxaca could be a factor, that Panathinaikos, seemed to have Fenerbahce's number when playing them at home. Why were Fener able to win both games?
The point is that aside of Obradovic and Fenerbahce and the law of Oaxaca, etc., the point is that going into the series, Panathinaikos seem to have developed some kind of chemistry after all, and a real solid game plan. But their misfortune was that they were facing Obradovic. You spoke about numbers, but there is also a very interesting numbers. Until this week, Obradovic coaching Fenerbahce had never beaten Panathinaikos on the road. He had 4 straight defeats. Of course, those games were not playoffs games. And that's the key. If there is a guy who knows pretty much the intricacies of a game against Panathinaikos at Oaka is Obradovic. And despite this being a new team for Panathinaikos, Obradovic really knows Kalathis. And I believe that this is the point where everything started going south for Panathinaikos. Kalathis in both games was out of the equation. That was the first big win of Obradovic on the chessboard, because Obradovic believes that you have to put the opponent in a very discomfort place in order to beat him. And without Kalathis running the show, or not being as effective as he could be, everything slowly for Panathinaikos crumbled. Panathinaikos pretty much tried to win the game by playing hero ball, and this is not what Pascal wanted. Players like Mike James or even Casey Rivers tried to do more than they were expected to, and ultimately that's why they failed. We speak a lot about Bogdan Bogdanovic, and rightfully so, because he demolished every defensive scheme of Panathinaikos. But on the other side, you have to talk about how efficient was the offense of Fenerbahce, which used a very small rotation of 7 players. And in this kind of rotation, a guy like Lucas was more than important. First of all, running the offense, and secondly, stopping Kalathis. And also, if you say that there was at least one other guy that played at the level of Bogdanovic and didn't get that much praise, that was Ekpe Judo. He virtually played all the games by himself in the center position. He was amazing in defense, especially in the second half of the second game. He eliminated single-handedly the front line of Panathinaikos. He was better than every big man of Panathinaikos on the court, and his defense is what made things easy for Fenerbahce, especially game 2. I don't know if this going to be a sweep by Fenerbahce, which is the most probable scenario, but the fact is that Panathinaikos at this point does not have many things left to do in order to turn things around. So even if it's not a sweep, I don't see how Fenerbahce will be denied from the Final Four, and I believe that Moshe, you agree with this.
Well, it's hard to argue with you, Aris, when you're putting things so nicely, so correctly, and well, you're spot on this one. But I really want to go deeper into what actually happened in those couple of games. And I want to start off with, last year when we saw Borussis, he was the man managing the Baskonia's offense as a point center from the top of from the elbow, sometimes, but still, he was the one to pass the ball also. Now, during the playoffs, he had in 3 games versus Panathinaikos over 3 assists, averaging, over 3 assists. At the end of that series where they've swept Panathinaikos. Besides that, now looking at the numbers, when we're talking on the first couple of games, we can see that, look at Fener's numbers when we're talking in terms of scoring from 2 points from deep. Both occasions, they had great percentages for scoring. Now, in all the games they've lost this year, it was either they had a bad day for shooting the 2 or a bad day shooting the 3 when they've lost games. Now, I do believe that, Panathinaikos might have been able to do something different. Basically what Obradovic did after taking Kalathis out from the equation, whenever Mike James was trying to attack the rim, it was either Kalinic in the first game or Ekpe Udo, who was amazing, that, simply attacked him on D. Now, when you do that, there's no pick and roll, there's no adjustment to come and try and help Mike James, break that first barrier, the first line of defense. And that's something that killed the Panathinaikos offense, I think, in the first game. Now, when you're letting a guy like Bruce only function as a guy that can put points on the board, then yes, you're gonna find yourself within a problem. Because whenever Bruce's got a ball for a post up, there was help came. Help came whether it was from the weak side, trying to create a trap, and again making things a bit harder for the big man. Which are as you know, I really think that he's an amazing player in terms of what he brings to the table and what he can bring. Now, again, I didn't expect it to go 2-0, 1-1 at best, not 2-0. So I really gotta praise Coach Obradovic. Yes, you haven't been, well, not you. I mean, the team itself. Fener was not playing, your kind of basketball. I would say during the season, you have sustained some losses, but when it was playoff time, we did expect to Fener go full throttle on just getting to the Final Four, and this is exactly what they're doing. Now, regarding Bogdanovic, you cannot expect to win at all with letting Bogdanovic be Bogdanovic. In the 90s, there was the Jordan rules. Here, there's got to be the Bogdanovic rules. You got to at least try to deprive the ball from him, to deny him from the ball. You got to at least try to break the shooter's play. You got to at least make Vesely sweat from the free throw line as much as he can to get the points. And when playing versus Ekpe Udoh, it's not about trying to stop him, because trust me, it looks like it's as if it's an impossible mission. It's more of a thing of containing a player. As Coach Ituris said basically after the game versus Baskonia about what he did with Shane Larkin. There are some players that you got to try to contain them. You cannot stop them. And from the looks of it, Panathinaikos have failed stopping both Bogdanovic and Udoh, because you can try and do whatever you want on the offensive end, and you can get points from Mike James. He can give you a great contribution, and Barousis can give you a great contribution, and Singleton would have to come basically to the next games. But it has to be a team effort, both on D and on offense. And I do believe that Panathinaikos were not consistent enough. They did not respond well to whatever Coach Obradovic threw at them. And it's a knockout pretty much after the first two games. And Emmett, I gotta say, as much as I was enjoying the coaching display of Fenerbahce in the first two games, we've got another team who are up by 2 games to none. We're talking CSKA. And I know that Obradovic is on his way to make it 3 years in a row, maybe. Like we said, it is after all, not the plausible. We are expecting now a sweep over Panathinaikos, but CSKA are also on their way to a sweep. How do you see what happened in the first 2 games there?
Well, yeah, Moshe, it's looking like, if not a sweep, then certainly a CSKA progression. Like, I picked a Brooms situation, 3-0 in this. In both games, we saw, admittedly in different ways, CSKA sort of, I suppose, get a little too cozy at one point in the game. So, games 1 and 2, CSKA and Baskonia battled pretty closely for the first 2 quarters. Third quarter, CSKA somewhat stretch it out. Like, it was very businesslike, particularly in the second game, where they were slowly building their lead, and got to that double-digit position, which you figure a team as good as CSKA can if not hold that, just paw off with their jab down the final stretch. And in both games, they could have bloody well lost it. Basically, simple as that. More game 1 than game 2, admittedly, despite the scoreline being formally closer at the end of game 2. Like in game 1, it's fair to say Baskonia sort of threw away their shot. It wasn't like, the usual arguments we might have with a team going to a tough place to play on the road in terms of, getting the calls against them. Baskonia weren't really getting done on the calls. I know there was arguments in game 2 over that, but in game 1 there wasn't. CSKA just found a way to win game 1. Game 2, admittedly, there was a couple of calls there which were debatable, but again, they were type of calls which you can't suddenly go, out there screaming wildly at. Like, they're type of ones that just happen in games. And Baskonia, they had 2 really good shots here. Like, I thought after game 1 that CSKA were going to take care of business pretty convincingly in game 2. They didn't. They were, again, pushed far closer than I think they expected, and certainly I expected in that game. I really, what I was impressed by Baskonia was he keeping them tight. Like, it's not a secret that Baskonia are a good basketball team. Like, they should at least keep them tight in one game out in Moscow and possibly get that W. But yeah, Sheska, for all the stresses they had, they still got the 2 wins. They're still 2-0 up, and we know that psychologically, when you're 2-0 down in a series best of 5, coming back is just so difficult. Like, even getting up for that third game can be tough, and like that's one of the things. Like, yeah, they're going back to Fernando Buesa now, where Baskonia, obviously it's not just their home court, it's where they feel in their happy place in terms of the ball they play. Like, they play their best basketball at home. And like, you would go, well, they ran Shetka close twice now. They should be able to take care of them, back in Vitoria Gasteiz. But at the same time, I'm kind of going, do I really think Baskonia think they can win this series? Now, I know it's on Cito Alonso to make those players believe it. And I know you've got a lot of players out there who will happily go all out no matter the circumstances. Like, this could be a game where they're told, nothing's at stake, and they'll still possibly deliver some huge performances. So Baskonia certainly can win a game, possibly even both in the home games, but I'm still leaning towards Sheska not needing to go back to Moscow to finish this off. I think Sheska either win game 3 or they drop it, but they still win game 4. I would be really surprised if this goes to full 5. Aris, like, what was your take really on this pairing, on these first 2 games between Sheska and Baskonia?
Well, first of all, we have to say congratulations to Baskonia for giving us such a series. It wasn't, of course, easy against an opponent like CSKA Moscow, but Cito Alonso and his players have proven that they are worthy of being part of the Euroleague, and probably they are also worthy of having this A license status. Of course, Baskonia is not expected to keep CSKA Moscow out of the Final Four. They will be fighting for pride, and with that being said, the champs, despite not finishing on top of the regular season standings, they have proven that they remain contenders, and that's only natural, having Nando De Colo and Milos Theodosis playing such a game. What's really interesting here is that nobody except Baskonia probably didn't expect for CSKA to be pushed that hard, and the second game being decided on details. With that have been said, and despite what Coach Alonso said about the respect from the referees, we have to say that the call that Kyle Hines got was right. He was fouled. So CSKA is expected to go to the Final Four. I don't see the series returning to Moscow. It will be interesting to see if Baskonia has the pride and they will avoid a sweep or not. But we have to say that Baskonia, it will be interesting to see how they will return next season, because they have achieved much practically without Andrea Bargnani, who was injured for most of the season. And the question is, what are they going to do next? Because Baskonia has the habit of losing key players during the summer. I don't see how players like Hanga, like Shengelia, like Larkin, or even Voigtman will stay at Baskonia. Some of them will leave. It's not only about them being free agent, it's also about Baskonia having the need to sell players in order to stay alive. And maybe the solution in that situation about Baskonia, in order to get back some of their stability, will be to get some young talent in the roster, like they did in the past, especially with the Argentinian trio of Priccioni, of Nocioni, and of Scola. Those were players that were developed by Baskonia and played for many years in the club before leaving. I believe that this may be their answer, and this is their best bet in creating a core of young and hopeful future stars that can build something and not having the need to start every year from scratch like they did after reaching the Final Four last year?
Well, Baskonia have definitely developed some great talent throughout the years, as you've said, Aris. In this series, one thing that was evident in the first game, Coach Cito Alonso tried to, just postpone as much as he could, putting both Hanga and Toko on the court. I think it was in terms of he was afraid of overusing them because it is a long series versus a very tough team. But it didn't take him long to realize that without Hanga, without Toko, things are not going well. And that would make the difference because I do believe that these two players are the ones that knows and understand, I think, the best way possible, the never say die spirit. Hanga is a great offensive stopper. I do think, however, that one of the mistakes that were made by Coach Cito Alonso is trying to go on a rampage versus Decolo, and you can see that Decolo's numbers are going down in the first two games. But the person who stepped up was Milos Teodosic. Now, the one thing that I did write in the preview article that I did on this best of 5 series, I did say one thing. Leave Dekolosic alone. Let these players do whatever they want because they will get their way with you. If it's not one, it's both of them. The way to get Cheska, to a point where they can lose a game is by stopping their assisting team, is by stopping Kyle Hines, is by stopping Friedzen or Vorancevic or whatever. But it's not about the main stars of the team. It's you gotta mark the X factors. And these are the guys you have to attack. And it's something that I do believe that Baskonia kind of failed to do. And it does explain perfectly how come it was, it's symbolic that it was Kyle Hines who put the last 2 free throws to decide the fate of game number 2. It is what it is. I do think that in the Fernando Buesa Arena, in front of a lot of Baskonia fans with the orchestra, it might go a bit different, but I don't see the series, going past game 4 at best. So I'm going on with my prediction for a sweep or 3-1 at best. Now, that was, we've got an intense couple of games, so we've got to hand it to Coach Alonso and to his players for their fighting spirit. But, one thing, there's another series that was simply great so far, and it is, the Olympiacos Efes series. Now, Emmett, we've seen first 2 games that were kind of different. I may have or may have not jinxed Olympiacos during the process. Again, not taking responsibility at all. How did you see the first 2 games, developing the way it did?
Well, Moshe, I did say this is the series most likely to have both teams win road games, and given the complete difference of matches we had there in games 1 and 2, I still feel very confident in that pick because we had 2 really, really different games. That's the one thing I think no one can argue about. Game 1 felt like a regular season matchup. It just did. Like comical track meet to start out. Olympiacos style of pace back a teensy bit, and then they were just business-like, taking care of Efes. Brief scare in the 4th quarter, nuked immediately by Spheropoulos. Timeout, everything was fine after that. And yeah, Olympiacos won in business-like fashion against an Efes side which didn't look like it was playoff ready. Game 2, Efes were playoff ready. Olympiacos did go into the break ahead, but Efes never let Olympiacos really put the foot in the neck at any point to make it feel like Oli were comfortable. They stayed with them, they hung with them, and then they eventually just pushed past them. And we knew that athletically Efes could do that at least once, possibly twice in this series. We saw that they had it to do it in this game. Regarding what's going forward, because honestly I think that's almost more interesting than these 2 very different games. I think it's implausible that we're going to have 2 similar games in Istanbul to each other. They could be similar to these two separately, all right, but I just don't see back-to-back games that are played out in similar styles. Like, I don't think we're going to see what happened in Moscow, where there was such similar story, almost narrative, to games 1 and 2. I think games 3 and 4 in Istanbul here between Efes and Oli are going to really stand out individually from each other. I think Efes will get at least one home win. The question is, can they close it and stop this from going back to the SEF? I just look at the options Oli have, and I think they're built to get a win on the road here. I just kind of go, you've got the veteran talent, you've got enough smart young guys out there, there's enough there to find a way to force us back to the SEF. I think, like I said at the start, this is the series I am most confident goes to full 5. After week 1, after games 1 and 2, I would actually say I'm more confident than ever, which, given some of our fans, Alex Chernik, shout out to you, man, for the Emmett Ryan Ball in Europe curse. Yeah, you know, and obviously Dusan Desvezes fan. Some of you might be going, well, that means we're definitely going to have an FS sweep based on what I'm predicting in the reverse sweep, I suppose. But no, I think it's going to be another interesting week in Istanbul for more reasons than one, obviously, because of course there's quite a few games in Istanbul this week coming. But yeah, I just look at this and kind of go, these two, they're not even close to done with each other yet. I think we're going to see a 1-1 split. Just for a change, just for a slight change, because obviously Aris is our expert in Greece above all else. We'll jump to Moshe first in this, and then go to Aris for his take on what happened really with Oli and Efes. So Moshe, what was your take on this Oli Efes games 1 and 2?
Wow! First of all, wow! You know, we've had amazing atmosphere. Both games in Greece, by the way, amazing atmosphere. But regarding Olympiacos, you know, as you said, 2 different games. Now, the first thing that I wanted to say is that it was the 80-point barrier, meaning Olympiacos would have to go above it in order to, you know, get as close to a win as possible, which they did in the first game. And, you know, by the time that the first half of the second game ended, I was like, well, they've scored around 44 points, so unless, you know, Efes come up with something extremely special on the defensive end, yeah, we're going to Istanbul with a 2-0 with Olympiacos getting this advantage. Now, back to what happened in the second half. You know, it was what it was. You know, Efes did what they did. They didn't say die. They went all the way, and all of a sudden, when, you know, it came down to the 50-50 situation, you saw that all of a sudden Derek Brown, you know, out of nowhere with a great hustle play, grabbed somehow a loose ball after a bad pass made by Brian Dunstan, and, you know, simply getting the dunk. And well, Brian Dunstan was the man at the end of the game. One thing that I am taking for the better for Olympiacos from this game, listen, with Cam Birch, he hasn't been able to you know, be as a big factor as he was throughout the season, which is okay, because he's facing a much more stronger guy with Brian Dunstan. Now, I did like what I saw in the minutes with Patrick Young in the second half. With him, you know, it gave them something else they didn't have, you know, the muscle to basically try to contain somehow Brian Dunstan with all the damage that he has done. Now, I do think that Olympiacos would have to use him more in the games over there. But the thing that I did like the most, and I simply, you know, couldn't help saving the best for last, is V-Span. You know, Vasilis Spanoulis, Kill Bill, getting his freak on, you know, during the second game. All of a sudden, he found his shooting stroke again. Printezis did his thing. Now, if these two guys are going to come and do it again in games 3 and 4, then yeah, we're probably going to see Olympiacos in the Final Four again. Aris, from your point of view, what was different? You know, what made the difference between game 1 and game 2, and what are you expecting towards the next couple of games in Istanbul?
The real surprise was how easy Olympiacos got the win in game 1 with Anadolu Efes playing really bad defense, and a team that is so athletic and has so many big bodies is expected to play defense the way they did in the second game. If you see the scoring output of Efes, it was almost identical. Olympiacos kept them near 70 points. The difference was that Olympiacos couldn't score, especially in the second half. Efes found a way to cut Olympiacos transition, and that made things pretty difficult for the Reds. And despite having Spanoulis scoring 6 3-pointers and tying his career best in the Euroleague, they couldn't get the win. So this is a red flag. The second red flag is the fact that Olympiacos had the chance to win the game, but the team that typically is the best at closing big games in the Euroleague lost 3 chances. First, Papanikolaou missed a 3, then Pridezis missed 2 free throws, and in the end Green had a great open shot and couldn't make it. Of course, you can't make every big shot and win, but I don't know if this mentally can shake the team. I don't really believe it, but it's worth saying that the team that excels at comebacks and closing games the right way this time fell short. The third thing that has to be said is a combination of 2 things. First of all, Tyler Honeycutt was ready to play, and in the second game was better, which probably means, because we don't have enough information about that his injury is now off the table. Maybe in the first game he was kind of not ready to do his thing, but Honeycutt is one of the key players of the series. And on the other side, one of the key players of the series who emerged in game 1, Nikola Milutinov, hurt his knee at game 2 and couldn't play at all in the second half. With Milutinov on the court, I believe that simply put, Olympiacos will have a much better chance to get the win. At this point, Olympiacos really missed Milutinov, and he's expected to be ready to play in Istanbul. I'm not going to say that Olympiacos can get 2 road wins, but I believe that Olympiacos for sure can win a game in Istanbul. This is really going to be like the 2013 series. I believe a game 5 that will be decided on details, and I believe that even if Efes miss the Final Four, they have made a real progress this season, and it will be a mistake for them not to trust Coach Perasovic and his roster at this point. It's the series that we expected to see. This is pretty much the only series that so far we are seeing what it was expected from the get-go. Baskonia proved to be much more competitive in Moscow. Fenerbahce got 2 breaks, but Olympiacos and Efes is what everyone was expected to see, and we're kind of excited to see that after all.
And that nicely leads us to, I suppose, the one we were all most complacent about. So first off, the Ruzhevak Gadosh, you've earned our respect this week. Not that you didn't have it before, but you earned more of it this week, basically, because in game 1 you really rattled Real Madrid, and we figured, right, you had your brave moment, but good on you, lads. Then in game 2 you said, oh, we ain't done yet, and you went out and you got that W. In a crunch time situation as well, it wasn't exactly easy work for you. Like, you know, Real kept with you right till the death. And normally, when that happens in the Palaciada de Port, or whatever sponsorship name it has these days, I lose track. You know, Real come good and get that W. So, you know, you went to the #1 seed in Euroleague with a 14-1 home record, and you nearly beat them the first time, and you got the job done the second time. Obviously, there'll be a lot of talk from the casual observers about Ante Zizic. He was brilliant, don't get me wrong. And the Boston Celtics are obviously wetting themselves and other things over how wonderful he's going to be as their backup center, maybe even starting center next year. He'll be backup center, just to be clear. He's not starting center. Just the way they play. Just it's strategic. Anyway, getting back on point. So Zizic, yes, he continues to show that he can really hang. But a lot of shout out really for Brad Wanamaker and Scotty Wilbekin here, because while Scotty's raw numbers would imply he had a roughish night from the field, in terms of the job that was needed of him in Game 2, he pretty much was exemplary. Blatt needed Wilbekin to be hyper-aggressive because simply the threat of him being hyper-aggressive was enough to open up opportunities for those around him, and it worked, simply put. Brad Wanamaker, of course, far more efficient, but like, you're going to need that from Brad Wanamaker, essentially. You need him to not just, you know, be out there shooting, but also be getting in that highish percentage of actual made shots, far more than you would from Scotty. So, yeah, you know, like, Dashka, you came good, you've made it 1-1, and I think you're going to at least force 5 here. I don't think you're going to reverse sweep this one. I think Real get at least 1 win in Istanbul. But I think we've seen enough now from Dashka to know that they're good enough to go the full 5 at Real Madrid and force an absolute classic back in Madrid for Game 5. I suppose the thing that was a little bit surprising for me was how quiet Luka Doncic was. Like, he was never really allowed to get into either of these games. And, you know, he didn't have too many minutes in the second outing, but in the first outing he got logged decent minutes and just never really was a factor, which, given what we've seen from this year, is a bit of a surprise, and it's hardly a confidence issue with him. He has all of it and all the belief that he can do it at this thing. I suppose a lot of it was what was going on around him, like in the middle, like that Zizic control was really working, like, was while Goose was getting his job done on offense for Real, like there was enough work on the offensive glass by Dashka, like to keep the pressure on Real, particularly in Game 2, like to, you know, to just get the job done. And like with Dashka, like they technically had 8 turnovers, but Real actually only managed to get 2 steals in that game, which I think speaks more about the pace Dashka plays at. Like, you know, quite often like their TOs are just straight out of bounders or clock running downers. Like, it's all about, you know, just get the most out of that ball, whatever we can every possession. So I think Real definitely, you know, you look at that and you kind of go, they weren't able to really capitalize on opportunities being given to them by Dashka. There weren't too many of them to begin with, so that's obviously a concern for Real going into games 3 and 4. But at the same time, you look at the Sergio Yui, you look at sort of the Pablo Lasso on the sideline, and you look at sort of the brain trust on the floor and off it for Real, and you go, they're going to find a way to win at least 1 in Istanbul. I still don't see Dashka winning the series. Very impressed with their performances in games 1 and 2 for certain. But I really think that, like, we probably saw the worst of Real in these 2 games, and there's at least 1 murder-death-kill game coming from Real in this series, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's Game 4. Game 3 maybe, but Game 4 is the one I kind of look at. That's when Real could really just, you know, put their foot in the neck of the Rushafaka. I suppose, jumping to you, Moshe, on this one, what was your take on these 2 games?
Well, you know, as we're looking at the stats, there's one thing that, you know, symbolizes what a huge difference there was between the first and the second, meaning Madrid have taken only 15 3-point attempts in the first one. Now, when they got to the second game, they've had 30. Yes, 3-0, 30 3-point attempts, meaning they've doubled their attempts. That's like, yeah, that's, you do not want to do that. You do not want to go full crazy from downtown, especially when you're 9 from 30 at the end of the night. It's 30%, but come on, wouldn't you rather try and get your, you know, your easy buckets inside? Now let's get down to business, shall we? Let's talk first about what Coach Lasso did. At the beginning of Game 1, you've seen that, well, he was trying to adapt himself to Dashka. Now, when you have the money, when you have the roster, basketball is a game of adaptations. Now, the big dogs, as you might refer to them, like the big teams with the money, and we're talking Cheska, we're talking Madrid, you know, they are the ones to set the pace, meaning whenever you're coming to play against them, you need to adapt yourself. Now, when Coach Lasso tries to adapt himself to Coach Blatt, this is where things get wrong. You know, his defensive lineups in the first game, he put Jeffrey Tyler with Wanamaker, since, well, as we've suggested in the first playoff edition, you know, Wanamaker is just way too big for Sergio Yui. meaning, you know, we can keep attacking him, taking him down to the basket, whether it's with penetration or maybe, you know, just simply trying to post him up if, you know, such situation would have been tried. Now, it ended up putting Yui with James Anderson. You know, it kind of, I think it kind of hurt the fluidity of Madrid's game at the beginning. Now, true that in the first game, you know, Madrid were kind of struggling, and then, you know, you get Yui go full crazy, full frenzy, as he knows. But during the second game, you know, when Žižić was coming into play, I gotta say that both games, Dachka have looked into Madrid's eyes, and Madrid were the ones to blink first. Now, it's true that the first game ended up being, you know, going with Madrid, but Darüşşafaka could have, you know, you can say that it's getting now a bit too ambitious to say that, but yeah, they could have gotten with 2 wins from Madrid with the way that Madrid looked in the first 2. They got to do something different. They got to play the Madrid style of basketball, because as soon as they stop running and trying to adapt themselves to Dachka, you know, that kind of messes things up. Now, I did see Rudy Fernandez getting hurt. I do not know what's the situation on it, and when he's going to be fit. Maybe it was just like a, you know, just a hard, he was hit hard, and that's what it is, and he'll be back, like, you know, for the next league game. But it's also something that you got to take into consideration. You know, Coach Lasso is amazing. The path that this club has made under him, as soon as he got, I mean, he got into Madrid, you know, right after, if I remember correctly, that year with Messina resigning and Emmanuel Molin taking his place mid-season, or at least towards the end of it. And afterwards, you know, ever since, you know, quietly, obviously with having some of the best players in the whole continent, you've seen Madrid going up and up and up and up and climbing and progressing and doing what they need to do. So, you know, Coach Lasso really needs to figure out how he makes Coach Blatt adapt to his style of game. Because if he will not manage to do that, I don't see this thing going very well with Madrid. They will make it to the Final Four. But, you know, it's the way they're going to look in the process. Because now you're going to have 3 teams who made it to the Final Four, who knows that Madrid has some issues when they're playing certain basketball. Aris, how did you see those 2 games?
This is the most interesting series because it's the return of David Blatt in Europe. It's the Luka Doncic ultimate test in the big stage. It's Sergio Llull making his case for the MVP award, because by the numbers he is the MVP. And the fact that Blatt stresses constantly that we are leaving a legacy in Darüşşafaka, and this is a very clear innuendo about the fact that Darüşşafaka will probably not be part of the Euroleague next season, is a series that has a lot in stake. Besides the obvious prize, Blatt and Darüşşafaka know that this may be the last chance they have to play in the Euroleague, at least until the 2018-19 season, because with the things going as they go in Spain, I don't see how Darüşşafaka could miraculously end up being in the Euroleague next season. The fact in game 2, and this demonstrates the quality of Darüşşafaka, is that the backcourt of Darüşşafaka outplayed the backcourt of Real Madrid. You may argue that Madrid was having a bad day, that Llull was not as accurate as we are used to see him being, but he didn't have, at least in scoring, any real help. Doncic had an off game at shooting because he was brilliant as usual in every other aspect of the game. Rudy Fernandez also tried to save the day with his defense and not with his offense, and it's the kind of game that Real plays, with many possessions, with very fast execution with no one really looking at the clock and trying to use time, that is giving to Blood the chance, who is playing a much more controlled brand of basketball, to make things difficult for Madrid and Coach Lasso. I'm not really surprised about the fact that Darussafaka won the game, and to be honest, the only possible sweep I was expecting, and I hope this does not happen, is the series between CSKA Moscow and Baskonia. It will be interesting to see how Darussafaka will react now that they have the chance to get the lead in the series with 2 home wins. And even get to the Final Four with 2 home wins, not only get the lead. I think that Darussafaka is turning a lot of heads, and considering the fact that we don't have a history of the 8th seeded team beating the top seeded team, because this is the first time in Euroleague that we have a real league and playoffs, the way in every other league are established. It will be interesting to see if this new format holds such a big surprise to everyone. I expect Madrid to react. But the problem is for Madrid that they are a much more offensive-oriented team that they should be. They need to step up on their defense. They are on the other side of the court. They have everything figured out. They have to stop Wanamaker, and they have to stop Zizic. I'm really surprised also by Zizic. We knew that he's a great player. We knew that he will develop to a player that will play in the NBA. This is not even a secret that next season he will be a part of the Boston Celtics. What's really interesting is that he has no fear against an established team, an established front line. He just doesn't stop attacking, and he has also great numbers. Darussafaka got to a point after getting Zizic in order to cover Slaughter that no one expected them to be. This is a series to watch. And it will be a very interesting story to see next week in Istanbul, especially if they get the win at Game 3. I don't remember Madrid having in recent years the home court advantage and being with their back against the wall. It will be interesting then to see how Madrid will react.
Well, just Aris, just on that as a very, very quick aside, last time I can recall Madrid with home court struggling was 2011 playoffs, where Valencia pushed them to the limit, pushed into a Game 5, and going into Game 5 looked very capable of stealing it. Madrid obviously won and progressed to the Final Four, where they had a forgettable Final Four. So, Moshe, yeah, that's the 4 games. What else are we going to look at here?
Yeah, well, I do remember best of 5 series where Madrid went all the way. It was even with Olympiacos, I believe, when they... it wasn't that long ago anyway, for some. But I really want to ask you guys two questions. Do you believe that, first of all, maybe the guy to take out of the equation for Dachka is Scottie Wilbekin, because he is the defensive stopper in a manner of speaking. I mean, his numbers are not the flashiest one in terms of when you put the comparison to the rest of the team. He's not Ante Žižić, which I really want to address that also with a second question. With Coach Blatt being responsible, I'm guessing, for proving to everyone that Žižić can contribute now to a playoff team in the Euroleague, proving that he's ready, at least under him, to also perform in the highest levels. Do you think that it gives him something extra and maybe a potential return to the NBA in the future?
Well, I'll take those looking at sort of the Wilbekin factor first, Moshe. If you look at Wilbekin, Wanamaker, and Zizic, if you've got to shut down one of those three, figure that's going to be your key to winning this series. You got to pick Wilbekin because Wanamaker is such a straightforward game that he's either going to make it work or not, and what you do about it is limited. Zizic, I just don't think Real are actually built to stop him right now. So Wilbekin, for all he's doing as a defensive stopper and as a showing that aggression when he's on offense, is probably the most soluble of them, for one way of putting it. In terms of Blatt in the NBA, oh god, I don't actually know how to answer that because never say never and never say probably will be the two things I say. Like I don't think I think a lot of people will respect that he saw more in the can contribute now with Zizic than a lot of people, including most of us, did. Like we all thought Zizic obviously was, going to be good enough, but we just felt he wasn't. Well, now and then Blatt goes, nope, he's ready now, and he showed it. But I don't think that's going to be a huge factor in any potential future NBA jobs for David Blatt. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if he does go to the NBA that his next job was as an assistant somewhere where somebody smart realised that having David Blatt around isn't a bad idea. But, yeah, I wouldn't read too much into... even though I will stress the anti-Zizic playoff series was always the most over-analysed one by NBA fans watching Euroleague, especially because of David Blatt as well. I wouldn't read too much into this. Aris, so for you, is Wilbekin demand a stop? And... will anti-Zizic help bring Blatt back to the NBA?
I agree with you that Wilbekin is maybe the best on-ball defender of Darüşşafaka, and certainly he's the fastest guard that they have, so he will be tasked with playing defense against Sergio Llull, but I don't see how Real can force him to play bad defense or wear him down. A defender can't be exploited if he's a bad defender, not if he's a good defender. The David Blatt case remains a mystery until Blatt opens up and speaks on detail about his NBA experience, and if he really wants to return to the NBA under any capacity. We can't really assume what was going on, because even if Blatt was treated pretty harsh by the US media, I detect that there is kind of sympathy towards him by many US based journalists. So at this point, almost 1 year and some months after what happened with him in Cleveland, we really don't know what happened. We really don't know the details of what went down between him and obviously LeBron James, and what led to his sacking from Cleveland. So I don't know if Blatt is willing to take this road again. For many years, many European coaches, and Blatt is a very interesting hybrid because he's not a European coach. He's a coach who made his career in Europe, but going to the NBA, it's not like he's have to adjust to the culture or to the American nuisance. He's an American. For many years, many European coaches believe that simply they can coexist in the NBA with the NBA superstars. This mold, this might be the case with Blatt. So I don't really. We have to ask him, and for him at this point, he insists that the NBA book is closed on him.
Yeah. So yes, that is pretty much all we have got time for here on this edition of Sweet 16, where of course we are going full court press throughout the playoffs. It's been an exciting first week of playoffs. As you can tell, we're expecting an exciting second week of playoffs. I think I pretty soon you got that across from the show. But it's farewell from here. So from Dublin, as ever, you can find me ballineurope.com, facebook.com/ballineurope, and on Twitter at BIE_basketball. And Aris, how can we all find you?
You can all find me as always in my social media. You can find me on the Eurohoops social media and the Eurohoops portal. You can watch me or hear me sometimes at Cosmote TV, and we're here in Athens. I don't know if all of us guys should go and spend the upcoming week in Istanbul just before the Final Four, because the Turkish mega city is going to be the hotbed of Euroleague basketball for the next 5 days.
Well, you can find me at MosesB1, and I am Team Scout on Twitter, Facebook at Team Scout, and well, the website teamscout.net. Now, with the show coming to an end, at least this episode, no worries, we're having we'll give you a spoiler alert. We are planning something big for the Final Four, which we will be attending. So yes, well, all that and more, just down the road. So yeah, before we say goodbye, don't forget to subscribe. We will be available on Eurohoops TV, on YouTube. We will be available also on SoundCloud and iTunes. Now, with that being said, till next time.
Sweet 16, an open book on
Euroleague basketball.
Covering 16 EuroLeague teams.
Gonna be sweet. Sweet 16.